If you didn't teach me, how would I make my hair in a braid? If I didn't have you showing me what to do. You know how much I love you, Mom. Someday I'll fly away and I'll travel the world and reach for the stars. But I'll have you in my heart. You will never be far, 'cause all that you are shines through in who I am. Happy Mother's Day. If you're a mom, I would like to invite you to stand up and we would like to give you a special gift. I could live to be 101 and never meet anyone half as fun as you. It's true. Someday I'll fly away and I'll travel the world and reach for the stars. But I'll have you in my heart. You will never be far, 'cause all that you are shines through in who I am. Oh, thank you, Mom, for making me who I am. I love you, Mom.
Well, moms, I hope you feel very special, very valued and loved today. That song that Lydia just sang, Lydia, by the way, is 8 years old. She wrote this song for her mom last year. Isn't that amazing? And Lydia, I just want to thank you because that song really spoke to me as a mom. So just keep up the good work. Keep it going. Thank you so much. So moms, in addition to celebrating moms this weekend, we have two other celebrations. The first is that we want to welcome all of the Shelby campus people that are joining the Troy family. We're glad you're in the house today. And we've set up a reception area in the lobby where the orange balloons are so that you can welcome one another, see a familiar face, but also we have a chance to welcome you out there. I'll be out there after the service. I look forward to meeting each and every one of you. Third thing that we're celebrating is today is the opening of Kensington's Clinton Township building. Yeah, it's awesome. And if you don't know, for the past 12 years, the Clinton Township campus has been meeting in a rented facility. And thanks to your generosity through giving to the Everyone campaign, today they have opened the doors to that building. They had no parking in the first service. It's packed for the second one. So God is going to bring many new people who are going to take a next step on their spiritual journey because of having a permanent facility there. So thank you for that. And then I wanted to let families know something that's coming up this summer. Every summer, our families take an opportunity to go away together for Rock Your Family Camp. And what they do is they go up north to Spring Hill camps where they have a blast together, everything from kayaking and paintball to zip lines and ropes courses. But they also have some large group times together where they have a chance to understand what it means to be a godly family. So if you're interested in more information, you want to look at the housing, you can go online and learn more and register. Or if you have questions, you can go out to the lobby and ask at the info center. We're happy to answer those questions out there. And then finally, on the way in, you may have received a card. If not, you can grab one on the way out. All school year long, our leaders and our volunteers in our Kensington Kids program serve so faithfully. And then when it comes time for school to end, it's an opportunity for all of us to stand in the gap and make a difference. And so if you sign up for 1 or 2 hours over the summer, what it means is it's kind of a win-win situation. You have an opportunity to take a peek at the amazing kids programs that we run here, and you get to experience the joy of giving your life away. Now, I'm signing my family up for a couple of times this summer. This is the first time they're hearing it. It's going to be great. We'll go to brunch after. And I hope that you'll take that opportunity to sign up your family as well. Maybe even your small group, but it's an opportunity to make a difference and to leave a legacy. So let's take a moment. Let's stand up, greet one another warmly, celebrate those moms around you, and we'll continue on.
Mom, you are beautiful. You are so kind. You are the strongest woman that I know.
Mom, thank you so much for being such an amazing example of a godly wife, mother, and woman of God.
Yeah, and thanks for leaving a legacy of a crazy home, but one that really lived out the gospel of Jesus. Whether we're in the grocery store and you're inviting people over for dinner, our home was always open.
And thank you for including Vic and I, after we lost our parents, into this craziness of your family. And thank you for pouring your love and your legacy into us. We love you.
And honestly, I love you to infinity. 'Cause darling, you're my masterpiece. And no Pablo Picasso could capture the beauty I see.
Mom, you are the strongest person I have ever met, and you teach us the most important lessons.
Mom, you are very brave, and I just want to be like you when I grow up.
Mom, you're one of the most hardworking people I know. I know it's a lot to take care of 4 girls all the time, but somehow you do it. We just appreciate everything you do for us.
Mom, thank you for cheering me up sometimes when I get sad.
Mom, you are the strongest person that I know. I admire your courage and your strength and all the joy that you bring to everyone around us.
And honestly, I love you to infinity. 'Cause darling, you're my masterpiece. And no Pablo Picasso could capture the beauty I see.
Mom, she's funny because she always tickles us every direction. Mommy's really pretty.
Mom, you are everything I could ask for in a mom, and I truly respect how much you prioritize family first before everything else, and I'm truly blessed to have you in my life.
Mom, we love you, and you are a masterpiece.
Mom, I love you so much. You are a masterpiece.
Mom, you are a masterpiece.
Mom, you are truly a masterpiece.
Mom, you're a masterpiece. Mom, you're a masterpiece. We love you.
And honestly, I love you to infinity. 'Cause darling, you're my masterpiece. And no Pablo Picasso could capture the beauty I see. And honestly, I love you to infinity. 'Cause darling, you're my masterpiece. And no Pablo Picasso could capture the beauty I see.
Let's bow our heads and let's pray. Let's give them a hand. Let's give our moms a hand. Absolutely. Let's do that first. Let's bow our heads and let's spend a few moments in prayer. God, we thank you for our mothers. We thank you for the incredible gift that they are. And I pray that for every single mother here in this room, that today that they would feel loved and appreciated and honored. Thank you that through their lives that we have a clear picture of who you are and your love and your kindness towards us, God. But we also recognize that today is a difficult day for some as well. It's a difficult reminder of something that they so desperately desire to have and to be in their life, but for some reason it hasn't worked out. Or for others, it's a reminder that their mom isn't with them anymore. And so for those who today is a difficult day, we pray that you would remind them that you are with them, God, and that you so deeply love and care for them. And so we thank you, Lord. We thank you for the opportunity to gather here today and to really be able to celebrate who you are and also celebrate our mothers. And so we thank you and pray these things in your son's name. Amen. So good morning, everyone. Awesome. If you haven't noticed, we're celebrating moms today. And if that's a surprise to you, hey, you know what? Surprise, right? It's Happy Mother's Day to all of you mothers who are here. And we are so excited that all of you mothers are here, that all of you are here. And if you're a mother here today, we hope that you do feel loved and you do feel appreciated today. And as you can tell, I love my mom as well. And I actually gave her a call yesterday night because she's in Korea right now, which means that they're 13 hours ahead of us, and I wished her a happy Mother's Day. And I had a great conversation with her. And yesterday, she actually told me a story about something that happened in her life a number of years ago when I was really young. And it's a powerful, powerful story that I'll share with you later on in the message. But I also wanted to welcome our Shelby friends here today, and I know there are several here, and so we wanted to say welcome. We are so happy that you're here, and for the past several weeks, we have been praying for you, that the transition for you, and also if you came with family, that for all of you, your transition would be as smooth and as seamless as possible. And if there is anything that I or anybody here at Troy can do, please do not hesitate to ask. But I wanted to start off today by asking you all a question. How many of you, just by a quick show of hands, how many of you know who this man is? In his picture, how many of you know who he is? Okay, a few of you do. And for those of you who don't, his name is Professor Robert Kelly, and he is an expert on South Korean politics. And the vast majority of people in this world did not know who he was until March 10th of last year, because it was on that day that he appeared on the BBC to discuss the impeachment of the South Korean president. And while he was on live television, his two children busted into the room because they wanted to be a part of the conversation as well. So take a look.
Scandals happen all the time. The question is, how do democracies respond to those scandals?
And what will it mean for the wider region? I think one of your children has just walked in. I mean, shifting sands in the region. Do you think relations with the North may change?
I would be surprised if they do. Pardon me. My apologies.
What's this going to mean for the region?
My apologies. South Korea's policy choices on North Korea have been severely limited in the last 6 months to a year.
That's funny. It's hilarious. And so that's probably a reminder to many of you. How many of you saw that when it first came out? Okay, so a lot of you. And it wasn't a joke. This really happened on live television. And afterwards, the video immediately went viral, and the BBC estimates that it was viewed more than 100 million times in the first week. And as a result, Robert Kelly and his family, they became instant internet sensations. They became huge. They were on morning talk shows. They were everywhere in the following days. And of course, as we saw, Robert Kelly, he's not just a professor. He's not just an expert on South Korean politics, but he's also a dad. And the first time that I saw this, the very first thing that I noticed was the way that he responded as a dad, which at least in my opinion is the way that a lot of dads probably would have responded in that exact same situation, was that he didn't respond in the most warm and nurturing of ways. Because if you notice, his daughter is the first to walk in, walks up right beside him, and he's like pushes her away as if to say, get away from me, stop bothering me, you're ruining everything. And I guess I wasn't the only one who noticed this, because there's a comedy show out of New Zealand called Jono and Ben that also picked up on it, and they created a spoof as to how they believe a mom would respond in the same situation. So take a look.
The question now is, how do people respond to their scandals?
For the wider region, I think one of your children has just walked in, but I mean, shifting sands in the region, do you think relations with the North may change?
It's unclear at the moment what effect former President Gun-hae's impeachment will have on the territories. Unfortunately, discontent in South Korea is not only related to President Gun-hae's administration.
Okay.
This is a major embarrassment for South Korea, who often criticizes the North of corruption, and who now find themselves in the middle of a massive corruption case themselves.
Sorry, you do look rather busy there. We can reschedule
President
this.
Gun-hae is very likely to face jail time too.
Okay.
I would argue, in an attempt to make an example of her.
Right, so what does this all mean for the future of South Korea?
So the future of South Korea really hangs in the balance.
Oh my God, is that a bomb?
And it will be interesting to see how the North reacts to this new shift in power.
Indeed. Well, this certainly has been... sorry, your husband is...
I anticipate there will be more to come from this region in the next few months.
Kate Wordsworth, you're obviously busy. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, let's find this sock then.
That's great. And of course, it's exaggerated. Of course, they're playing off of stereotypes. But when you saw that video, I hope the primary message that you received are that moms are amazing, because they are. You are. Because oftentimes as moms, not oftentimes, all the time, you have to wear so many hats as a mom. And you have to be able to operate in some crazy and chaotic circumstances. It seems like it just comes with the job of being a mom. Yet for so many mothers, they're able to do so while still expressing warmth and showing warmth, kindness, and love to their children. And when you think about motherhood, motherhood is filled with some incredible joys. Like when you see your child and you hold your child for the very first time. Or when you see your child take their very first step, or when you hear them say, I love you, for the first time, which melts your heart. Or when they graduate from high school or college, which some of you moms probably experienced in the past few weeks. Or when they move out and they get married and they have children of their own. And I was actually talking to my wife, Robin, yesterday, and I asked her, what has been the greatest joy for you in being a mom? And this is actually a picture of Robin and my two kids. And it's from 4 years ago, so it's a little bit old, but I love this picture because it so perfectly describes their relationship. They have so much fun together, they laugh together, they have a phenomenal relationship. And so yesterday I asked her, what has been the best part for you of being a mom? And I thought she might say, oh, you know what, it was when I was in the hospital and I held them for the first time, or it was when they uttered their first word. I thought she would say something like that. But rather, she said something completely unexpected, at least to me. And that she said, you know what, it wasn't a certain moment, but it's moments that happen every single day. It's those moments when, as a mom, I get frustrated, where I get impatient, where I fall short and make mistakes. And when that happens, and when I go and apologize to them, they're so quick to forgive me, they're so quick to extend mercy and grace. And when that happens, I'm able to see God a little bit more clearly through them. Greatest part of being a mom, she said. So motherhood is filled with some incredible joys. But at the same time, as all of you moms know, it's filled with some huge challenges as well. There's the physical exhaustion. There are the tantrums and the arguments. There's the heartbreak and the helplessness when your child is going through something so hard, and yet you have no idea how to help them, or there might not be anything you can do to help them. There's a tension that so many mothers feel between career and family. And of course, all the pressure that our culture places on moms to be like this, to do it like this, to have children like this. It's not easy being a mom. And so yesterday night, I also asked my wife, Robin, what has been the most difficult part for you? And she didn't say, oh, it was labor, it was the 9 months of carrying the child, or whatever it was, or even the blowout diapers that my son had a lot of. He just has this unique skill of being able to blow that diaper up. But it wasn't any of that. But rather, what she said is that for her, the greatest challenge has been centered around this word, enough. Not feeling like she does enough for our children. Not feeling like she loves them enough, plays with them enough, teaches them enough, signs them up for enough classes or lessons, or feeds them enough of the right foods. And of course, when she goes on social media and she sees pictures that her other mom friends post of all these incredible things that they're doing for and with their children, that just makes it all the worse. But she said that for her, that's the hardest part. And probably some of you moms would agree as well. Because it's not easy being a mom. And sometimes the challenges can overshadow the joys. But for all of you moms who are here today, our hope is that today that you would know that on this incredible journey called motherhood, that you are not alone. And that the God of the universe who created you and the extraordinary children that you have the privilege of being a mother to is with you. And in talking about this today, we're actually going to be looking at the life of a woman, of a mother in the Old Testament named Hagar. And who Hagar was that she was an Egyptian slave. And her master, or the person that Hagar served, was a woman named Sarah. And Sarah was married to a man named Abraham. And Abraham was the one who God gave all of these incredible promises to in the Old Testament. And one of the promises that he gave to him was that even though he was old and it was physically impossible for his wife Sarah to have children, and they didn't have any children at the time, but God promised him that he would have a child and his descendants would be more numerous than the stars in the sky. And the extraordinary thing is that Abraham believed God, even though it was impossible for them to have children. It's naturally impossible. He believed that God was the God of the possible. But fast forward 10 years after God had given him the promise, an entire decade had passed. And you know what? Still no child. And when we pick up the story in the book of Genesis, which is the very first book in the Bible, what we see is that Abraham's wife, Sarah, her faith started to waver. And so she decided to take matters into her own hands. And she said to Abraham, "The Lord has kept me from having children. So this is what I want you to do, Abraham. Go and sleep with my slave," and that slave was Hagar. "Perhaps I can build a family through her." And of course, this would never happen today. But thousands of years ago, in that day, in that culture, this was something that was normal. Doesn't mean it was right. Doesn't mean that God approved. It just means that a lot of people did it. And so I could imagine Abraham, Sarah, his wife, says this to her, says this to him, "Go and sleep with my servant Hagar." And Abraham's thinking, all right, I'll take one for the team, I guess. I don't know what he thought, but maybe he thought something like that. And so he goes, listens to his wife, sleeps with her slave, and you know what? Sarah's plan worked. Hagar got pregnant. But even though this whole thing was Sarah's idea, she got jealous of Hagar, and she started taking out her jealousy on everyone around her, including Abraham. And she said to her husband, "You're responsible for the wrong I'm suffering. I put my slave in your arms, and now that she knows she's pregnant, she despises me. May the Lord judge between you and me." And this would have been a perfect time for Abraham, rather than take the passive approach, take an active approach, step up and provide some direction. But he doesn't do any of that, because his response to Sarah then is, "Your slave is in your hands. Do with her whatever you think best." Do whatever you want is his approach. So that's exactly what Sarah did. And she took out her anger, her frustration, her jealousy out on Hagar. And what we see in Genesis chapter 16, verse 6, is that it says that Sarah mistreated Hagar. But I think it was way worse than that. I think it was more along the lines of abuse. Because Hagar felt like her life was so unbearable that she had no choice except to run away. So that's exactly what she did. And she runs to all places, is that she runs into the middle of a desert, because that's how badly she wanted to get away from Sarah. And have any of you been in a desert before? Maybe literally, but probably many of you have been in a desert figuratively, where you looked around and there was no one to help you. You had nowhere to go. There were no resources around you. Have you ever been in a place like that? And Hagar found herself there, both literally and probably figuratively as well. Because when she was in the middle of that desert, she had nowhere to go, and there was no one to help her, because guess what? All of her family was in Egypt, because that's where she was from, and Egypt was far away. And also, she was pregnant, had nowhere to sleep, and probably had very little money, very little food, and she was also completely alone, which for a woman at that time in that culture was a dangerous thing to be, because they could be taken advantage of, they could be abducted, they might even be killed by merchants and travelers. And it says that into her desperate situation in that moment, that God sent an angel to help her. And what this angel said to Hagar is that this angel said, Hagar, I want you to go back to Sarah. And imagine how difficult that must have been for Hagar to make that choice, to go back to the person who had so mistreated her, had treated her so incredibly poorly. She had just run away, and now this angel is saying, no, I want you to go back. But Hagar had the courage to do that, and that saved her life. But through this angel, God also made an incredible promise to Hagar, very similar to the promise that he gave to Abraham, which was that her descendants would be too numerous to count, and the baby that she was carrying would be a boy, and she was to name him Ishmael. And Hagar responded to God's kindness, his mercy, his love, by giving God a name. And this is the name that she gave him. She said, you are the God who sees me. For she said, I have now seen the one who sees me. So Hagar responded by giving God the name, the God who sees. And this name really speaks to what God had done for her, because God had seen Hagar, the person. God didn't see Hagar, the slave, the one that everyone else saw. He didn't see the Hagar who had very little value, very little rights. She was so often treated like a piece of property that could be bought and sold and thrown away. No, God saw her. And in seeing her, he communicated three powerful things to Hagar in that moment. The first thing that he communicated to her was that she had value, that she was more than a slave, that she was more than a piece of property, but rather she had dignity and worth. Even though she was invisible to so many of the people around her, God saw her, because who she was in his eyes was that she was his child, his daughter, and therefore she had greater value than anything she could understand or imagine. Because God also saw her, it also meant that he deeply cared. Because in the scriptures, there is a strong connection between God seeing as well as God caring. And one example of this is in the book of Exodus, which is the second book in the Bible. And God was telling Moses something. And Moses, if some of you remember who he was, one of the greatest leaders in all the history of Israel. He's the guy who led the people of God out of slavery in Egypt. He's the guy who parted the Red Sea. He's the one who brought the 10 Commandments down from the mountain. And God said to Moses, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt, and I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned. God expresses care about their suffering. And so because God saw what was happening to his people, he cared. Same thing with Hagar. Because God saw what had happened to her, what situation she was in at that time, he deeply cared. And he provided for her. And that's the next point. Because for God to see also means that he will provide. And God provided for Hagar in two ways, because he sent two angels to help her. First time in the passage that we just saw in Genesis 16, but also later on in the book of Genesis, what happened again was that Hagar found herself in the desert. I don't know what it is with Hagar in deserts, but apparently she really liked running into them. And so she runs again into the desert, but this time she's not alone, because her son Ishmael was born. And so he was with her, and he was about to die of thirst, and God opened her eyes up to a well that was right in front of her. And so for God to see means that you are valued, that you are cared for, but also that you will be provided for. And similar to Hagar, for many of you moms who are here today, oftentimes on a lot of days, you may feel completely invisible. You may feel like, you know what, your kids, they don't see you for who you truly are, but they see something completely different. And that is how you may feel on so many days. And there was an article that I read a few years ago, and it was written by an author named Nicole Johnson, and the title of the article is literally, I Am Invisible. And she talks about this, her experience of being invisible to her kids. And this is what she writes. She says, it all began to make sense. The blank stares, the lack of response, the way one of the kids will walk into the room while I'm on the phone and ask to be taken to the store. And inside I'm thinking, can't you see? I'm on the phone. Obviously not. No one can see if I'm on the phone or cooking or sweeping the floor or even standing on my head in the corner because no one can see me at all. I'm invisible. Some days I'm only a pair of hands, nothing more. Can you fix this? Can you tie this? Can you open this? Some days I'm not a pair of hands. I'm not even a human being. I'm a clock to ask, what time is it? I'm a satellite guide to answer, what number is the Disney Channel? I'm a car to order right around 5:30, please. I was certain that these were the hands that once held books, and the eyes that studied history, and the mind that graduated. But now they had all disappeared into the peanut butter, never to be seen again. Can any of you moms relate? Feeling like this? And if this is how you've ever felt as a mom, if you feel like this today, that you know what, when your kids see you, they don't see who you are, but rather they see a chauffeur, a cook, a bank, a maid, an income earner, that this is how you feel, that you would know today, that even when it feels like you're invisible to everyone around you, that the God of the universe sees you. And because he sees you, you have extraordinary value. You have value as a mother, not because of what you do, not because of what you have, but rather because of who you are. Because you are a child, you are a daughter of God. And you have such incredible value that the only Son of God, Jesus, more than 2,000 years ago, he stepped into human history, was tried, tortured, and then nailed to a cross and killed for your sins, so that if you chose to follow him, that you could experience not just any life, but a life that is filled with greater hope, love, joy, and peace than you could ever imagine or understand. This is the value and this is the worth that you have. But at the same time, because God sees you as a mom, that you would also know that he deeply cares. That no matter what you're going through today, it might be something that's amazing, it might be something that's heartbreaking, it might be something that's extraordinary, it might be something that is excruciatingly painful. But that you would know that because God sees you, that he cares and that he understands. But at the same time, that you would also know that because God sees you, that he will provide for you. And sometimes that provision, it may come sort of like it did for Hagar, in God asking you to do something that you don't want to do. Because Hagar didn't want to go back to Sarah, but she did, and it saved her life. Or that provision may come in the form of God opening your eyes to something that was right in front of you the entire time that you never even thought was an option, just like for Hagar. But whatever it is, that you would know that God will provide for you. And one of God's names in the scriptures is Jehovah Jireh. And what that means is the God who provides. And the reason why God has that name is because over and over and over again, that is what God has done. That's his MO. That's how he operates. And so that you would know today as a mother that because God sees you, you have value, you are cared for, and that he will provide for you. And along the lines of provision, what we wanted to do right now as well is that we wanted to receive the offering. And so, ushers, if I want to invite you to come forward, and we're going to receive that right now. And if this is your first time with us here today, first of all, I want to say thank you for being here. We are thrilled that you're here. But please do not feel any obligation to give, because this does not have to be your moment. Instead, what we'd love for you to do is afterwards to go out to the lobby and to drop by our starting point table. And you'll see the people who are there because they have bright orange shirts on with the word starting point. And we'd love for you to learn more about our community and to also have a conversation about how you can get engaged in our community as well. But as I mentioned to you earlier, yesterday I gave my mom a call after the Saturday night service because she's in Korea to wish her a happy Mother's Day. And my mom, it doesn't matter where she is in the world. She could be in Vancouver, she could be in Korea, somewhere in the US, somewhere else in the world. But no matter what, she always tunes in to one of our services here at Troy. She either catches it live or she'll watch the video afterwards. And so she's a part of our community. And so she asked me yesterday, what are you talking about today? And she didn't say, hey, it better be good, but I felt a little bit of pressure after my mom said that. And she said, so I said to her, hey, you know what? I'm gonna be talking about the story of Hagar, and I want every single mom to know that God sees them. And so then she told me a story about a time, a number of years ago, when she experienced God seeing her. And my mom and my dad immigrated from Korea to Canada back in the 1970s, and you're gonna hear more about that story next week in our Defining Moments series that we're kicking off next week, and so we want to invite you all back for that. But they immigrated to Canada, and so my sister and myself, we were born in Canada. But when I was 4 and my sister was 5, he passed away of stomach cancer. And so she was left with 2 children and very, very little money. And so what she did immediately after my dad passed away is that she worked all of these odd jobs, because her degree from Korea wasn't recognized, her work experience wasn't recognized. And so she worked all of these small jobs to support our family. And at night, she would go to school to get trained to be a florist. And so a couple years later, she became certified. And during those years, what she also did was she saved little bits of money because she wanted to open up her own business. So after she got her certification to be a florist, she decided there was a developer nearby that was developing some retail space. And so she took the money that she had saved up and gave it all to him, every single penny, in order to reserve a space in that sort of little plaza in that little mall. But what ended up happening was that developer ended up going bankrupt, and my mom lost every single penny of her savings. She didn't have any money left after that. And in that moment, obviously, she was desperate. She was sad, and she was looking around wondering, what am I gonna do? I have 2 little children at home. How am I gonna support them? And she remembered that a number of years ago, when my dad had still been alive, he had opened up a bank account. And into this bank account, every so often, he had put small deposits in because he wanted eventually our family to use this money to buy a house. But she had forgotten about it, and no one had touched this account in years. And so she went back to the bank and asked them, is this account still around? Is the money still there? And one of the bankers, he looked and he looked and he looked, and he said, I have no idea where it is. The branch that he opened the account in, it's no longer open. And I have no idea where your money could be. Maybe the friendly Canadian government has absorbed it. Who knows? I have no idea where it is. And so he said, I'm gonna keep looking for it. I'm gonna try really, really hard, but I'm not really very optimistic that I'm gonna be able to find it. And so on that day, my mom left that bank, and she was even more heartbroken. And she got into her car and started driving home. And she said on that day, it was just raining so hard. It was just sheets of water coming down from the sky. And she felt like she just needed a breath before she went home. So she pulled into the parking lot of a local park, just turned off her engine, and she just sat there weeping. And there was no one else there because it was raining that day. And so she just took the next few moments to be able to cry. And then she asked God, God, do you even see what I'm going through right now? Do you see my situation? Are you still even here? Do you even care? And she said that a few minutes after she asked that of God, the rain suddenly stopped and the clouds parted in a way that this beam of sunlight just started shining directly through her windshield onto her. And she also told me that it was in that moment she was reminded of the words that God spoke to this man named Joshua in the Old Testament. And she first came across this verse, the day my dad died. And this is what it says. And God says, have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And she said that in that moment, with the sun shining, being reminded of this verse, she took that as God saying to her, I see you. I have not left you, and I am with you. But you know what? Her circumstances hadn't changed. They were still the same. She still didn't have a penny in the bank. But yet, she decided, I have no one else to trust. I have no one else to turn to. So I'm going to choose to trust you, God, and choose to trust that you see me and you haven't abandoned me. And so she started driving home. And she said that when she got home, a few minutes after she had closed the door, she got a call from that banker saying, I don't know how I found this, but I found your money. And with the money in that account, she opened up her flower store, her floral business. And she operated that store for 20 plus years. And that's basically how she raised my sister and me. It's a powerful story. And so I was FaceTiming with her yesterday, and I was looking at her, and I could see tears welling up in her eyes. And she said, you know what? When I was in that car that day, and it was raining so hard, and I was sitting in that parking lot, I felt like Hagar. I felt like I was in the middle of a desert with nowhere to go, no one to turn to, and no options. But she said, you know what? When that happened, when the sun started shining, when I was reminded of this verse, I knew that God saw me. She said, I knew that he valued me, I knew that he cared, and that somehow, I didn't know how, that somehow he would provide. And so for all of you mothers here today, that you would know that truth at the very core of your being, that you would know that you are valued more than anything you could understand or imagine, that you are deeply cared for, not because of what you have or what you do, but simply because of who you are. And that because God sees you, that he will also provide for you. But at the same time, something else that I recognize is that for some of you here, and for some of you watching online as well, that today is a difficult day for you. Because maybe it's a reminder of something that you so desperately desire to be or to have in your life, a child. But for some reason, it hasn't happened. For others of you, it might be a reminder that the person that you love so deeply, your mother, is no longer with you. And if that is you, that you too would know that the God of the universe sees you. And because he sees you, you are valued, you are cared for, and that he will provide for you. And so if this day is a joyous day, we want to celebrate with you. If today is a heartbreaking day, we also want to walk with you and hug you and to remind you that God is with you. But regardless of whatever day this is, whether it's an amazing day or a difficult day, that you would be reminded that the God of the universe sees you. And we're going to sing a song right now called Take Courage. And it reminds us that because God sees us, because he is with us, we can have strength, we can have courage, we can have hope. And so for some of you, I want to invite you to stand up and sing. For others of you, if that is not where you are, I want to invite you to just sit there and allow these words to wash over you, to allow these words to soak into your soul. And so let's step into this moment and let's take in these words.
Slow down, take time, breathe in, he said he'd reveal what's to come. The thoughts in his mind, always higher than mine, he'd reveal all to come. So take courage, my heart. Stay steadfast, my soul. He's in the waiting. He's in the waiting. Hold on to your hope as your triumph unfolds. He's never failing. He's never failing.
soul. He's in the waiting. He's in the waiting. Hold on to your hope as your triumph unfolds. He's never failing. He's never failing.
So we wanted to pray a blessing over all the mothers here in this room. And so if you are with your mother or you are standing beside a mother and they're okay with you putting your hand on their shoulder, that you would just reach out and to do so. And so for all of you mothers in this room, please receive this blessing. And I'm going to read it slowly so we can all just sort of take in the words and reflect on them. Mothers, you are embraced with an overwhelming, never-ending love of God. He adores you. He constantly pursues you. No wall will stop him. No lie can keep him away. Your unbelief won't discourage him because his love is not human. You are a beautiful warrior. You fight for your family. You defend your children. You defend all children. You run to the helpless. You bring beauty to the fight. You plant flowers in the mud. You bring pink to the darkness. You are lace among the grind. Your smile lights up the family room. Your laugh brightens the alley. You stand equal alongside the heads of the family, the heads of the neighborhood, the heads of the boardroom. Your power is not overshadowed by the powerful. You are powerful. You are strong. You bring light into the darkness. You transform every single room you walk into. And don't ever forget, he loves you. He adores you. He sings over you. You put a twinkle in his eye. He forgave you. You are forgiven, completely forgiven. He sees you, he knows you, he is with you, and he will never, ever leave. You are not alone. Don't ever believe you are alone. And you will finish strong. You will finish bruised. You will finish exhausted, but you will finish. You'll complete the race. And know your kids will be okay. God's got them. They'll be okay. Your family will survive. You are changing the next generation. You are changing the world, one son, one daughter at a time. That's you. Happy Mother's Day. And so to all of you mothers in the room, we honor you. We honor you. We hope that you feel loved and celebrated today. And so we wanted to close with a song that talks about the reckless love of God. And as a mother today, that you would know deep down in your soul that you are so deeply loved, not only by the people around you, by your children, but also by the God who created you. So let's sing this out together.
Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't turn it, and I don't deserve it. Still, you gave yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Your fault, still your love fought for me. You've been so good. You have been so, so good to me when I felt no worth. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. So, so kind to me. Come on, every voice, sing it out. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99, and I couldn't turn it. No, I don't deserve. No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. Sing it if you believe it. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Whoa, no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me.
So to everyone here, that you would leave here knowing that you are loved with a reckless love by the God who created you. Especially for you moms here, that you would know, leaving, that you are loved. And I also want to just say that if any of you moms here, if you did not receive a flower when you got here or since you've been here, our ushers will have flowers for you to take on your way out. And they smell great, and I should know, my mom was a florist, so they smell great. And so we also want to invite you back next week because we're starting a brand new series titled Defining Moments. And for anyone who would like to receive prayer, someone to pray with you, our prayer team will also be here. So happy Mother's Day, everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful Sunday.